Hello everyone and welcome, Smitty here. I thought it'd be fun to come out with a 9.2 tier list around what I think is going to be very strong in Mythic Plus. I want to preface this video with a bit of some context around what my tier list is about. So I'm taking into consideration that they have double legendary 4 pieces. I'm really looking at like the upper echelon of Mythic Plus. I think that, time in 20s across the board to unlock that new achievement should be achievable by any specialization. So if your specs on here and it's rated a bit low, I'm not taking shots at you. It's just how I think it'll perform in relation to the top performers in the Mythic Plus scene. I'm going to go ahead and start with tanks. I see Blood here. I think Blood is a solid B. It tends to do pretty good later in expansions. However, I just don't think the damage is there, and I think damage is just absolutely critical for pushing the highest of keys. Guardian Druid, I feel like it's a high B or a low A. Like the damage is pretty good. I've been hearing good things about Venthyr, specifically around like spamming Thresh and being able to get threat pretty easily. However, I think they're like one of those tanks that like they're unkillable at certain points and then they get wrecked outside of that. However, like certain dungeons like halls, I think they're exceptionally good. Brewmaster. This one's a tough one because they do a lot of damage and their utility is incredible with Ring of Peace, Sweeping Leg Kick, and some other things. I feel like they're upper A or lower S. I just don't. I have another tank in mind, and you probably know who it is or what it is, but I'm gonna go ahead and dive right into that, and that's Protection Paladin. They're super strong, and their 4 piece is really nice. Double Lego is going to be pretty good. They're going to be slapping. They do a lot of damage. They can heal. Lots of utility. They're looking really good. Prot Warrior. I feel like Prot Warrior does a lot of damage. I think they'll have their niche uses. Specifically like Theater of Pain and stuff like that. I think they're super strong. They do enough damage. I just don't think they do anything much better than other tanks except for reduced physical damage. With that being said, all the tanks are kind of able to survive at this point. It's fairly balanced in that area, so I don't foresee them being the top tanks. Am I missing DH, right? Vengeance. I think they're going to be a bit better than Blood and Protection Warrior. However, I think once the key starts getting a bit higher that they start to fall off because they can just get autoed a couple times and just get popped. Alright, let's take a look at the healers. This is where it's gonna mix it up a little bit. Disc Priest. I'm putting it in the D tier. Not because I hate Disc Priests. Disc Priests are incredible. I love them in Raid. However, I think they're pretty bad at N+, because they're just always struggling to keep. Now this is empirical data, of course, but I feel like they're always like struggling to keep the group up. Their healing throughput's pretty bad, and when they have to spam heal, they're not doing damage, so their damage isn't that great either. Alright, Mistweaver Monk. I'm actually going to put them kind of in the middle of the B tier here. I think they might see some play. Like, they're looking pretty decent from what I've been hearing. I don't have much experience on this spec specifically, but I do think that it might see some play in some groups, and it does bring that Mystic Touch debuff, which is really nice for some compositions. Alright, Resto Druid. You heard it here first. Resto Druid is going to be the meta healer. Resto Druid, I think, has kind of the best Mythic Plus kit of all the healers, in my personal opinion. It brings a ton of utility. Also, like, I think works really well for some affixes like Grievous, and just in general, like if you're running with a prot paladin in general, you can just hot everything up, and then your Paladin can like kind of spot heal where needed. Their damage got buffed across the board. The healing got buffed. I think that I think it's likely to see a lot of Kyrian Resto Druid next patch. Holy, this one's an interesting one. Kind of the same as Resto. I think their healing throughput got buffed a lot. Their damage got buffed. I still feel like they're like a high B tier. They're not quite that A tier healer just yet. But I do foresee them, like several of them, being in some of the hierarchies. Alright, let's take a look at our friend Holy Paladin. I think that maybe Holy Paladin got nerfed just bad enough that you just ain't gonna see it. Like it's still, I still think it's a little bit better than Holy because of its kit. It brings a lot of utility. The healing throughput is just not there, and the damage got hit pretty hard. Alright, I know we got one more healer. Where is it? Resto Shaman. I'm going to put these right behind Resto Druid. I think Resto Shaman's in an incredible spot to be a top pick for M+. I think last season was really high. I think they can run double DPS Lego and run that Kyrian Vesper Totem, which is huge. So I think that it's going to be a bit of a fight between these guys, but I think in the highest of keys, Resto Druid will be a bit better, but Resto Shaman's looking... I think these two specs will be neck and neck for the healer role. Alright, let's dive into some DPS. We got our Affliction Warlock. In the context of the highest keys, I think Affliction Warlock may be good in like an MDI circumstance because you can just pull the world, but in the highest keys, you're not going to be pulling like that. I'm putting him down here in F because it's partially because I think if you're playing a Warlock, you're just going to be playing one of the other two specs. But I think Affliction is looking really bad for this season. Demonology Warlock. I think I've been hearing like a lot of good things. I've been watching Kalamazi a bit on the PTR. I think they're looking pretty good. I just don't foresee them like being like a top tier pick for M+. I think you'll see some. They're decent, but they're not the best. Of the Warlock specs, I do think that Destro is the best. They have a ton of uptime on their Infernal, I believe, on AoE, so their damage is quite incredible. I think where they lack is their single target. Moving on to Mages. Arcane. This one's so interesting because their tier set is really strong for AoE. I guess I'm just not convinced, and I don't think that there are a lot of people that play it. I think it's like upper B and could be pretty good, but I'm just not expecting it to perform too well. Fire. I think this is a low A tier. I think there will be some good reasons to bring a Fire Mage on occasion. They'll have pretty much combust every pack, and it's just nice having that insane burst damage to get through some extremely difficult packs. Frost Mage, despite their nerfs, after the 4-piece unlocks in Double Legendary and they run Necro, they're just going to be doing... I feel like they're going to be doing almost as good a damage as last patch in comparison. However, their AoE got hit pretty hard, Frozen Orb and Blizzard. I put them at the top of A because of that instead of S pick. They may not be the top damage, but the utility they bring with the permanent slows. You can bring Ring of Frost. You got your double ice block. Like, it's just looking to be a super strong spec for Mythic Plus. Warriors, Arms. I think it's decent, but I think where Arms really excels is 2-target cleave and single target. So I'm going to put it down here in the C tier. I don't think it's awful. It could probably be like somewhere in the B tier. I think since Fury is so incredible in keys, it just kind of mitigates how good Arms can be. Moving right on to Fury. I think Fury is really good. I'm going to put it just behind Frost Mage because they don't bring as much utility. But I guess in the highest of keys, that shout that they bring could be pretty important. The thing with Fury Warriors is they just pump, but their threat generation is extremely high, so I'm expecting them to to die a lot because of that. Alright, Assassination Rogue. I think Assassination is in the B tier. It's okay. I think it pumps single targets, so maybe some tyrannical weeks it might be good. I think find like a decent way to pump AoE as well. I think the main reason they're in B tier for me is it's a rogue. Their utility is insane for M+. So I don't know, not sure I can really rate them any lower than that. I think Outlaw is a little below Assassination. It's good, but Outlaw is one of those specs, like if they remove the target cap with Blade Flurry, I feel like they'd skyrocket back to S. They don't bring the damage, but they do bring an insane amount of utility. I also think their 4-piece is a bit clunky from what I've read and heard around the community. Last, Sub-Rogue. Sub-Rogue's incredible. The priority damage they do is just so good. Like Sub-Rogue's super strong right now. I think their borrowed power to be gained in 9.2 just increases their viability. Looking to be strong damage, big utility. They're great for Mythic Plus. Alright. Brett Paladin, I played this up over 2400 IO last season. I quit early playing this in the season because you're not getting invited. Probably for good reason. Rep Paladin does not do very good damage. I think it might be a bit better than Affliction. I'm going to put it in the D tier. I think their tier is pretty bad, so it kind of takes away from their burst. I think you'll, like, if you know a guy that's really good at it, maybe it's okay, but in the high, you're just not going to see them in the higher keys, in my personal opinion. Windwalker, their Bone Dust Brew got crushed. 5% more damage for not being able to crit. I think they'll still do good in AoE, but I'm going to put them at top of B. They could be a low A. Like, they still bring a lot of utility, that debuff. I don't foresee them doing very well this patch. In the highest of keys, at least. Enhancement Shaman. Another spec. I think this is actually great in Raid, but I don't think it's going to do too great in Mythic Plus. I don't have much to say about it. I'm not expecting much from them. Unholy Dk. Another spec, I think that's just kind of middle of the road. Like, I think their single target's going to be pretty good. Their grippy arm AoE is going to be solid, but I don't foresee them being played much at the higher elos. Frost Dk, I do think Frost is a bit better. They do really nice AoE, and I think I was reading or heard from some other streamer or YouTuber that there's some kind of build where you can just like permanently have Breath of Cindergrosa rolling. Not permanently, but for a really long periods of time. So I think this makes them look pretty nice for being top of B tier, just to really pump some sustained AoE. Oh, I skipped the other Shaman spec. I think the Elemental Shaman will still kind of... It might be low A, high B. Their AoE is insane. Their single target looks to be corrected by the 4-piece. I think they could be a strong contender and even move up into that A tier slot. They also bring some utility as well. Feral Druid. Sorry. They got nerfed so hard. The weird interaction with their tier set, I believe, where they could do huge chunks of AoE. If it weren't for that, I think I would have them in the B or A, maybe even low A if their damage profile stayed the same. However, I just don't think they bring enough to the M plus group to put them in a higher tier. Beast Mastery. Pretty good at single target. pretty good. I think the Beastmaster survives quite well. However, I don't think it's going to perform that well in M+. Survival, I actually think survival is low S tier, high A. I don't think they bring too much utility. They do bring some. I think that one of the things to put them in S tier, one of the reasons is that their damage is insane, and if it stays that way, people that were playing melee before will switch to that, and I think you'll see some really good survival hunters in the top tier of keys. Alright, Moonkin. I think Moonkin is looking pretty good. They got decent AoE, a lot of utility, decent single target. I don't think they do anything exceptionally well, specifically in either realm, whether it's single or AoE, but just having that consistent, and you toss side heals, things get a little squirrely, you bring that rebirth. They're looking pretty good. Havoc, that's a weird one because normally I would always have Havoc in A, even S tier in some cases in previous seasons. However, I'm hearing that their AoE is really bad and their single target's really good, so that's a really weird spot for them, and I don't think that type of damage breakdown is very good for M+. Marksmanship Hunter, I think they're going to be pretty decent. Their AoE and M+ is pretty good. They have solid burst. I think their single target's not that great. I don't foresee them being highly sought after, but I think you might see a few here and there. Shadow Priest, unfortunately, really good single target. AoE, pretty cumbersome to play. I think you'll see that more in the C tier. I think if you know a really good Shadow Priest, it'll definitely be fine to bring. Like, they'll do a lot of damage. I just don't foresee them in the highest of keys. I appreciate you stopping by and watching the video. If you did enjoy this, please do drop a like and subscribe. I'll probably drop quite a few more videos during 9.2. Also, if you're interested, I do stream on Twitch. I'll drop a link to that in the description box below. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for stopping by. Until next time, peace!